Today on UW 360, sounding an environmental alarm, how a UW scientist is helping penguins share an urgent message about our world. Plus, getting girls to embrace science, technology, engineering, and math, and the UW research that says the earlier, the better. Also, the UW partnership that led to the creation of a 3D microscope that could be a powerful new tool for cancer treatment. And the end of an era for UW athletics as legendary sportscaster Bob Rondeau signs off as the longtime voice of the Huskies. Hi everyone, from the University of Washington, I'm Carolyn Douglas. Welcome to UW 360. They're called Sentinel species, animals on the front lines of sounding the alarm about environmental issues and climate change. One UW professor has dedicated her life to not only studying and protecting sentinel creatures, but also amplifying their message through the power of video. And when you step inside her office, it's no secret which of these sentinel creatures she loves most.
You never know when you're going to fall in love. You just are minding your own business, and I clearly fell in love with penguins.
It's a love affair that began more than 40 years ago when Dr. Dee Boersma first traveled to the Galapagos Islands in Ecuador to study its penguin population.
Everybody likes penguins, or at least I think almost everybody does. They're comical, they walk upright, we identify with them, and they're really interesting.
And like their fellow sentinel creatures, penguins are also extremely helpful in sounding the alarm about environmental hazards like pollution, overfishing, and climate change. Dr. Boersma regularly travels to Ecuador and Argentina to continue to study their penguin populations and the messages they convey.
They really are wonderful reflectors of environmental conditions. We think of them as sentinels, meaning like the canaries in the coal mine. So this is how it works in the field.
But what good is sounding an alarm if no one's listening? Dr. Boersma and her team at the UW Center for Ecosystem Sentinels have compiled decades of research about the penguins' lifestyles and environment.
When penguins walk across the scale...
But in an age of overwhelming information and limited attention spans, she realized scientists like herself must not only write and speak about their research.
Wildlife is telling us the state of our planet,
but also show it to the general public through the power of video, letting the penguins speak for themselves.
If penguins are telling you this, you might pay more attention to it than if a person actually tells you about it.
Which is why she now offers a course called Science Communication to teach biology students about storytelling and video editing.
Penguins are very photogenic and characteristic, and so having the video platform to do that allows us to tell their powerful message in a short period of time.
And so it's like going through a toll booth.
So Dr. Boersma and her team continue to work with the penguins, like devising easier, safer ways to measure their weight and learning how to track their age through the coloration of their feet.
My hope is that my students will change the world and make it better for people, but in particular for penguins and other sentinel species.
It's all part of a never-ending mission to demonstrate how environmental problems affect all of us and how humans can help.
With these sentinel species, you can alert people to some of these problems, and we can do better.
And thanks in part to the work happening here, she is more hopeful than ever.
Because we can make a difference for these other creatures in the world, and it will enrich our lives.
Dr. Boersma's course, Science Communication, is offered through the UW Biology Department, and her book, Penguins' Natural History and Conservation, is a bestseller for the University of Washington Press. You can learn more about that and view her students' videos on the Center for Ecosystem Sentinels website, which we've linked to our own site. Still to come, the end of an era for UW sports as the voice of Husky football and basketball hangs up his microphone. Plus, getting girls to say yes to science, technology, engineering, and math before they've already decided to shut the door on STEM classes and careers. And how doctors at UW Medicine are using new technology to save the lives of stroke patients. As UW360 continues.
The following UW360 story is made possible by the generous support of BECU. BECU, more than just money.
Welcome back to UW360. How often have you heard a student say, "I'm no good at math or science"? University of Washington researchers have learned that girls in particular draw conclusions about their science and technology abilities much earlier than anyone suspected, even by the time they start elementary school. Stacy Sakamoto spoke with a researcher about the findings and about some ways to boost girls' interest in science and technology.
Then here and then to the battery.
This isn't just playtime. It could be nurturing an interest and confidence in a career in technology.
I need the two wires. I need the red and black wires. No, wait.
Researchers from the University of Washington's Institute for Learning and Brain Science have found that girls make up their minds at an early age about their abilities in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math.
Sadly, by age 6, girls and boys already have stereotypes that boys are better at robots and programming.
We're finding that a lot of times the foreign-born people, they really like it.
Sapna Cherian, an associate professor in the Department of Psychology, was one of the researchers. The team also found that early experiences with programming and robots sparked an interest and inspired confidence in young girls.
So what we were interested in the study is looking at young girls, 6-year-old girls and boys, and trying to figure out how can we get girls more interested in topics that they're not as interested in right now as boys are, for example, robotics and programming.
Okay, here's the next puzzle.
As part of the study, researchers guided 6-year-olds to use a smartphone to control a robotic animal.
For a lot of little kids, it's their first time programming something, and it's a really, cute little robot, and you see them gain more confidence.
Researchers found that after completing this simple programming activity, the child's interest and confidence increased.
20 minutes engaging with a robot toy and programming this toy did successfully increase girls' interest and their self-efficacy, which is another way of saying kind of their beliefs that they could do well at programming and robotics.
We shared those findings with women in STEM fields, and they agree that love of science came at an early age, nurtured by family members and their own curiosity. Beatriz Medell is a UW freshman.
I remember my grandpa had this old radio, and he would let me play with it, and I think that's what kind of motivated me to go into that electrical engineering field.
Carla Herpold is a postdoctoral researcher in the Institute for Protein Design.
My dad is an engineer, and so we always grew up taking things to pieces.
And Brooke Fiala is a research scientist.
I set up little science experiments at home, putting sliced oranges in drawers and seeing how long they take to mold and everything, but my parents tend to get in the way of those sorts of experiments.
They all want to see more women in STEM fields.
With the right environment and the right programs, the right teachers in school can make such a difference, and something one day just clicks and you think, actually, I can do this. But you have to have a friend group that's supportive of that. You have to have peers who aren't going to judge you for being the smart one or the nerdy one or whatever.
My goal is let's open up the field so that there are many different types of people who can put it on the table as a career and feel like it's something that they could do.
Connect this here. This is gonna work, this is gonna work.
A smart toy could be a start.
3, 2, 1.
Professor Cherian says it's not enough to simply introduce girls to tech toys at an early age. She says it's also important to think about the entire culture of STEM fields and to make that world more inviting to women and girls. Now to a new scientific tool to help cancer patients. A collaborative effort of the University of Washington College of Engineering and School of Medicine is working to produce a new kind of microscope that could be a valuable tool for cancer treatment.
This is not your conventional microscope.
This is what we call optical sectioning. We use light to cut into the tissue
And then we imaged that illumination plane with a camera, a very sensitive high-speed camera, so that we can get an image that looks like it's been cut and placed on a glass slide, but without actually having to disrupt the tissue or to cut into it at all.
The open top places all the optics below a glass plate, allowing larger tissues to be imaged.
And we can take a whole 2D picture. Now, rather than getting 1 pixel at a time, we're getting millions of pixels at a time. And then by using a high-speed camera and then moving the tissue, we can get a 3D image in orders of magnitude faster, on the order of minutes.
Producing a 3D image faster shows promise in improving surgical procedures.
It should be more accurate diagnosis. And the speed is so impressive. We can put it on the light sheet microscope, stain it with a couple of dyes, and we can do that within 20 minutes. And so the patient can still be there.
I'd say there are 2 main clinical applications. The first one is related to the ability to image large surface areas. And that's really helpful for guiding a surgeon during surgery. Being able to tell a surgeon during surgery, this margin is positive, you need to take a little more tissue. So that way there isn't cancer remaining in the woman's body and we don't need an extra operation.
Current pathology practices require the physical cutting of specimens. The 3D microscope preserves specimens for additional study.
So you can preserve that valuable tissue for other purposes. Clinically now, they're very interested in genetic sequencing, for example, looking at the DNA and the RNA within the tissues to determine if the tumor is there or not.
We think by being able to image the tissue, get this microscopic image non-destructively, we can send all of the tissue for other studies and improve diagnosis in that way as well.
So what's next?
We've shown the basic feasibility of our technology that we can obtain beautiful images of tissues that look like they were mounted on a glass slide, that we can do 3-dimensional microscopy of biopsies, which can aid in diagnosis and improve in the clinician's ability to determine tumor from normal tissues, as well as to determine the grade of the tumor. So the next step would be to do more extensive clinical studies to prove that this technology can actually help patients, that by using this technology, the clinicians can improve their decisions of what types of treatments these patients need, as well as the aggressiveness of the tumor.
The 3D microscope is just one example of the kind of innovation and collaboration happening here at the University of Washington, which is fast becoming one of the top innovation districts in our region. Still ahead, the longtime voice of the Huskies signs off. We look back at the remarkable career of Bob Rondeau, plus the cutting-edge medical technology that helped this UW medicine patient walk out of the hospital after suffering a traumatic stroke, as UW 360 continues.
The following UW 360 story is made possible by the generous support of UW Medicine Neurosciences Institute. More at uwmedicine.org/NSI.
Welcome back to UW 360. It's an unsettling statistic from the American Stroke Association. Every 40 seconds, someone in the United States has a stroke. And every year, about 800 of them are rushed to UW Medicine emergency rooms, where they're cared for by a team of doctors, surgeons, and nurses who race against the clock. Stacy Sakamoto introduces us to one patient who says he owes his life to the team at UW Medicine and to his young granddaughter.
Well, we're getting ready for my grandson's birthday party, and I was right outside on the back deck trying to surprise him, with his sister's help with me, of course. Blowing up the pool. I was blowing it up like this. I felt myself getting weak, and the next thing I knew, I was down on the ground right here.
A stroke is any sort of damage to the brain, whether it be from bleeding into the brain directly or from a blood vessel being blocked by some obstruction that prevents oxygen from getting to parts of the brain. We have an incredible team of doctors, nurses, intensivists, interventionalists, neurosurgeons, and radiologists who are all dedicated to the treatment of both hemorrhagic and ischemic stroke.
Healthcare providers emphasize the need for medical treatment at the first sign of a stroke. They use the phrase, time is brain.
If you can imagine a stroke as sort of like the brain holding its breath, it can't hold its breath for very long. So the faster a patient presents for treatment, the more likely it is that that patient will have a good outcome.
Stephen Owens didn't want his family to call 911, but his 11-year-old granddaughter, Angelina, insisted.
Because his arm was turned that way.
She showed me this morning and said, your mouth was...
Paramedics rushed him to the hospital, where he was treated for an ischemic stroke by a team from the UW-Medicine Neurosciences Institute Comprehensive Stroke Center.
And the treatments for ischemic stroke is a shot of a medicine called TPA, tissue plasminogen activator, which is a thrombolytic that dissolves blood clots. And that medicine has to be given within 4.5 hours at the latest.
And then after that, they scheduled me to go in for the surgery. And once they went in with the surgery and stuff and pulled the blood clot out.
And that's where a small catheter is weaved into the blood vessel and the blockage, and then the blockage is pulled out. The blood clot is actually pulled out of the blood vessel.
The procedure was performed in a state-of-the-art operating room called the Angio Suite.
This Angio Suite is really the cutting edge. This is the sharpest knife in our toolbox in terms of the cutting edge neurosurgical care that we can deliver for endovascular using these very precise tools in order to get to where we need to go.
That's my angel, baby. Ah.
Owens is grateful for his quick-thinking family.
If I would have waited 2 more minutes, my whole side probably would have been paralyzed and I wouldn't be able to talk.
It's an incredible feeling to watch a patient leave the hospital and know that they're going to go on to recover and forget all about us. If we do our job the best we possibly can, then the patient does not think about how they were in the hospital sick with a stroke or another neurological disorder, and they just are able to lead their lives the way that they want and do the things that make life worth living. And so our best patients, to my mind, are the ones that forget all about us.
But Owens thinks he'll never forget the care he received from the UW-Medicine Neurosciences Institute Comprehensive Stroke Center.
If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here sitting talking to you now.
Stephen and his healthcare team at UW-Medicine have this life-saving advice for how to recognize when someone is having a stroke. They call it FAST, F for face drooping, A, arm weakness, S, speech difficulty, and T, time to call 911. Straight ahead, one of the most iconic voices in the history of Northwest sports.
Touchdown, Washington!
Legendary sports broadcaster Bob Rondeau has been the voice of the Huskies for nearly 4 decades. Now he's hanging up his microphone. A look back at his remarkable career next on UW360. Welcome back to UW360. He is a huge part of Husky sports history, calling out the names of football greats from Napoleon Kaufman to Marcus Tuiasosopo and UW basketball stars Isaiah Thomas to Detlef Schrempf. Bob Rondeau has seen it all, and now the Hall of Fame announcer is retiring. Aaron Mayofsky has his story.
It has the distance. It's good! Touchdown for Washington! Touchdown! Patterson's going all the way! Touchdown, Washington!
It's been the centerpiece of my professional life.
Intercepted! Nate Robinson! Joe Kelly going into the 5. Touchdown, Washington!
It has been everything I could have asked for in a career and then some.
Angling out to the near side, 35-40 has the sideline in midfield, cutting back. Pettis at the 40 of Montana, 30.
After nearly 40 years and 1,400 football and basketball games, the legendary voice of the Huskies.
Into the end zone! Are you kidding me? Touchdown, Washington, Dante Pettis!
Bob Rondeau is hanging up the microphone. And especially getting no help from his wife.
if it was Molly's decision, I would do this until the day I die. She was very much, you got a few more years, you know, you're still, why don't you stay on? And
Jake to throw on first down, guns at far side, ball caught.
As a fan, I'm going to be as sad as everybody else in the city, but as his wife, I'm very excited for him. He has lots of plans and lots of stuff we're going to do.
239 yards.
He's just so incredible at what he does. And he's such a perfectionist, and that comes out in his work. He's amazing.
Looks for a little throwback, comes to Trey Adams. And
After 37 years in the broadcast booth, it's easy to find people who respect what Bob has meant to the university and community.
Bob Rondeau. I think most people, whatever you choose to do, would really hope you could, you know, have a career that was so special and iconic.
You don't replace Bob Rondeau. You just don't. He is a legend, remarkable man. He's been in our homes and our hearts for so long.
Van Soderberg with his first Husky kickoff.
I think a lot of people may take it for granted because he's so smooth, but a lot of work goes into it, and Bob has mastered the profession almost like no one I know.
On this night, we found Bob in his comfort zone, the broadcast booth doing his thing, and his legendary touchdown call.
Straight ahead into the end zone. Touchdown, Washington.
Man, it's unfortunate for us Husky fans who love Bob and know when his voice comes on in the air in the fall that all is right. We're going to miss him.
21-7 Huskies.
He is so professional, but he's also so much fun. And I've never worked with anybody as prepared as Bob Rondeau.
Husky football and basketball.
Crossover move, step back, jumper on the way. Yes! It's a buzzer! It is good!
Are only part of Bob Rondeau's life. His other love?
just another day in the workplace.
These little guys who know a little bit about Bob's incredible career.
I'm 67 years old. I've had the time of my life certainly doing Husky athletics, but there comes a time for all of us to move on, and that time for me is now.
Touchdown, Washington! Wow!
Rondeau says he'll be spending a ton of time traveling, hanging with his grandkids, and fishing. Tony Castricone has already been named the new basketball play-by-play man. He'll also call Husky football in 2018. And that does it for this edition of UW 360. If you'd like more information on any of the stories you saw today, just head to our website at uwtv.org/UW360. You'll also find us on Facebook and Twitter. I'm Carolyn Douglas. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time with all new stories from the University of Washington.